Welcome to this Zentangle Quickie. My name is Heather Hartwick Gladden. I'm a certified Zentangle teacher. And today we're going to take a look at the Tangle Fandango from CZT Vicki Bassett. Now this is, I would say, it's a border tangle in that it's kind of in a line. Sometimes I call them, or I've heard it termed ribbon tangle. That might be a better word for this one because it's really kind of versatile. You could use it as a border or... well, I'll show you in the examples at the end, but let's get to how to do it. All right, so in the description box, you will find a link to my step out and other interesting, if I have some other stuff for inspiration, look for links there. But here's how this starts, and I'm going to go diagonal on this one. Excuse me, it starts off with a zigzag. And I'm going to draw this rather big. Let's see, I want to make sure that you can see the tip of my pen. All right, so just a nice zigzag. And so this one, it's kind of important to have a bit of distance, as you go. So you can play with that, how big you want, but you kind of want them, I'm going to call it tall. Because we need to be able to, fit the ribbon essentially through them. So once you have it once, we're going to aura it. And I'm going to aura this direction. And then, of course, you decide how wide you want to have your aura. One thing that I have found, I always had a challenge with is auraing these kind of corners. And it seems like if I make the distance wider here than I do here, that seems to help. But just kind of, I mention it so that way you can kind of keep an eyeball out, or kind of go slow. Just be cautious on those corners, so that way you have a good result. All right, I have a big M. Oh wait, no, I have a big W. All right. Next step. So this is interesting. So at the timing of this recording, I did a couple of my Tangle Time sessions that I do on Thursdays. Information also to connect is in that description section. So if you want to come and join us on a Thursday, those are free classes. I do have some paid classes and a new subscription club if you want more information on that. Of course, in the links. But on Thursdays I do a couple sessions of where we're just exploring different tangles. And so what I found was I did things a little bit different as I was doing it versus when I was playing with it. It was something that happened, but I want to share it. So the next step is essentially doing an S, and I think, you know what, I'm going to do it one way in the first run through, and a second on the aura, so that way I can kind of describe both at the same time without doing a whole nother tile. And also on the step out, I put a note, I think it's on the third box, with an arrow to both the second and third box. If you have a thicker pen, feel free to go ahead and use that first if you want to. But so what I kind of did there was, it's like, I'm assuming that everybody is just using a fine liner and and that's that. But I do want to make sure that hey, you could do that with the pen. All right, with the thicker pen. Okay, so this is essentially an S shape. So I have turned my tile so that way I can feel like I'm drawing an S shape. And so here's what we're going to do. And actually I don't have that much room to go here. So I'm going to start here and a little ways down, and I'm starting my curve, and I'm going to do over first. It doesn't matter which way you go over first. So we're going right over that, which is just weird. Usually we go under like this. And now here, this one, we're going to go under. So I've picked up my pen. I'm, travel it across, and then I'm going to continue it down here. And then this one, we're going over. So you're alternating over, under, over, under. And actually, I'm going to go backwards and finish this curve line like so. Okay? Now, that's the way I did it initially. It's kind of what's reflected in the step out. But here's something else. So if this kind of makes you nervous, or you've tried it and you're like, frustrated, give this a try. And so the second step is we're gonna aura this, unless you used a thick pen. But here's what I ended up doing. It just, I don't know, I just started doing it and I wasn't even thinking. So I'm going to aura this. And so essentially you're kind of doing, okay, curve line this direction. And I'm going to pick up my pen and use the hollow bow technique every time I come to the zigzag. And so that's what we would normally do. And then I'm auraing this, picking up my pen, auraing this side, picking up my pen, and so on. And then what I ended up doing, so yeah, it's a funny story. I'll hopefully we'll have the replays posted so you can see that in the replay, because the AM session, I did a border. Well, here, let me just show you. Okay, so I was doing this border, and so this is like a little preview of what I'm going to show at the end. I was doing this because I wanted to be able to instruct, and then realizing that I kind of, it's not made a mess for myself. It's like if I'm just tangling, that's fine. But if I'm teaching, that's something different. So I started it again over here so I could re-show. And then I was like, oh well, hopefully by the time I connect this to this, it'll all work out. It'll all work out anyway, and we all knew that. But then I ended up backtracking and doing this. And then what I did was I drew over, just to kind of track my over and underness, and instead of shading the whole thing, I just did like this. So like this is an over, and so I scribbled there, and then I continued because it was, as you could see, it went all the way around. So it was a long time, and then this, it was the same thing. But I share that with you because maybe it will help if you're having a challenge with it. Maybe it will help you out. And then you go back and then just fill in where you have the over, and fill in that line, and you're all fine. So if that helps you, then great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, here's my little graphic one. And I'm going to come back and fill this in with my graphic. Now, if you are new to Zentangle, we have a philosophy that there are no such thing as mistakes in Zentangle, as I was kind of alluding to. And I call them course corrections. And so there's many opportunities to kind of adjust things if need be. And this is one of them. So in filling in, so like here's like, oh, okay, my line's a little bit goofy there because I went back and I was filling in that section after the fact. But this, so, and you can see it kind of, it's just not smooth. So as long as I can go out with my pen, I can just, we'll just add add a little thickness right there. We'll just go right over it. If, anything else that ends up making you not happy, as long as you can make it thicker, then you can feel free. So like even here is like, well, I'd like to have that curve be a little bit better. And you just have to be careful so that way if you have something that's lining up with something else, you just have to be careful that you're not messing something up worse. But that is one of my favorite course corrections outside of, waiting to the end and then seeing if shading will help, and then you can always there's kind of like a list to run through. Now what I did with the with that graphic 1 pen, I left a little bit of distance because it is thick and I don't want it to accidentally go in. So that's why I'm coming back with my 01 pen and just filling in that little gap, because as I was playing with it and I was using that, actually I was using Sakura now has a 10 and a 12. I think I have, well, I did have handy. Oh, I know, I moved it. Well, how far did I move it? As I could show you the nib difference. Oh, here it is. So this is 01. And that's a 10. So you have a little bit, so it's neat to have a thicker nib to work with. But at the same time, you don't get to get in tight like this as you will with having this the fine line with the 01. All right. So now that we have this part done, we're going to draw some straight lines. So in the V section, so we're going to come down to this point. Oops, let me move here. Sorry about that. And draw a straight line up. And you can decide if you want it to go, over, over. I'm kind of making it just a smidge taller than the V's. I'm going to turn my tile just because. And, oh, well, I'll go back to that, sorry. Straight line, and then, so straight line up the middle, and then subdivide each section. And I was kind of making the second ones just a little bit shorter than the top one, so that way it kind of will help with that fan shape, hence the name Fandango. And there we go, another one up the middle. And subdividing. Oh, that one's not going to make that. Okay, now let me go back and subdivide this one. And then the next step, it also can be a bit of a course correction. Oh, let me get, this one's going to have some partials. And let's see. And there we go. Now, when you do this next step, also can kind of course correct if you want, and also to play. So you can decide how steep you want the curve line. So we're going to put curved lines. Actually, I'm going to start right here. So I'm going to curve line for those spokes, and another curve line. Like I said, you can decide how high you want them, and then this last one comes down to that peak. And yeah, and this is where you can just kind of have fun and decide, like I said, there we go. Because you can make them, like I said, high. Oh, and also if you ended up, if you made it maybe too short, then you can always, as you're going, it's like, oh, well, I can just make that a little higher as you're doing that line. Now, something else that, and this just bothered me, but as we were doing the class, I'm like, I had some of these curve lines didn't quite line up. Well, like I've got one right here, if you can see it. And so I decided, well, you know what? I watch Rick and Maria always put this weight in certain places. So that's what I'm going to do. And this isn't exactly rounding, because there is a technique. I know we used it in a Tangle not too long ago. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Where we used the technique of rounding, which is, well, it would be essentially if I take this edge and then make it, curve it and then fill it in just even a little bit. But this, I'm just kind of just adding a little bit of extra pen mark to either side, out of an effort, course correction, to fix my little, place where I didn't have it quite line up exactly right. And you can see just that little bit of something adds something to the whole pattern. All right. And that is basically it. Oops. Let me get this little curve line over here. I almost missed that guy. All right. So now we can do shading. You can have some fun with decorating if as always, you can add color if you want to. And let's see, I'm going to, well, because we had fun with this, and I think I didn't quite do this on my white tile with the blue that I had just showed you. So what I'm going to do, we're going to make the zigzag pop. So I'm adding some graphite to either side. And actually, why don't I... Oh, well, no, I don't need to do that. Actually, I'm going to have this kind of go out a little bit. I was thinking of that, and I thought of something else, but I can show you on the example. All right, so on either side, being very careful not to go inside the zigzag. And one way to do that is to, have your tip kind of pointed to the line you don't want to go over. That helps a bit. And I'm using this golf pencil because it just adds such nice, dark, rich graphite. And that's what I want right now. All right. Then we're going to use the tortillon and just bring that out. I'm using some small circles as I'm traveling along the line. And it's the same principle, putting the point of the tortillon on the line that I don't want to cross. And actually, this is still wet-ish. So if you're using a cotton tile, like, this is a bijou original Zentangle tile, and sometimes if you put a lot of ink down, then you can end up, picking up the ink and some of the paper and all that kind of stuff. So you can just, I kind of get right up to the edge because I want it to look like it's gone through, but I'm just really careful around that. All right, and you can see how that is not only popping that out, but it makes that, it almost makes that white in there brighter than even over here where we're not touching anything. All right, now let's get the other side. And it's just a really neat shading technique. Oops. Sliding it all over the place. And also, in doing this, I've kind of, naturally, there's more down here. So, because one other way you can do this, if you don't want to mess with around the zigzag, you could just, use the fans and put some, graphite down here in the bottom. But this kind of naturally does that. And so that looks really cool. And so then I'm just going to add, as kind of a second step, I'm just going to put some graphite up here at the top. And you can see, and I'm just using what's left on my tortillon without adding anything. Probably need to add a little bit, and I don't want those little round. I like to have gradient, personally. There we go. Oh yes, yeah, it looks a little bit better. All right, and again, I hadn't added any graphite. That's just what was left. And for this, because I just want to kind of give it that little bit of a curved effect, or like the middle is raised up a bit. Actually, I'm going to round that off a little. And in order to have that work, you kind of have to have original tile color in there. And then I'll show you some of the other cool shading things that I did on those samples as well. Oh, neat. Yeah, and it just, it adds extra dimension and kind of gives it life, and that's what's fun about adding shading to the projects. And you don't have to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But it does just makes things pop. It's so neat. All right, so let me share with you these couple examples from our earlier class. And so this one, and this was what I went, oh, I should, and then I changed my mind. Something that you could do, if you wish, is you could add an aura around the entire design. And that's what I've done on this one. And then I did some really dark shading around the edge of it. So it essentially, kind of gives the impression that we call it fussy cutting. So I fussy cut around the outside of that aura and then, glued it onto something else. And then this one also, besides putting the darkness around the zigzag like I did in like I just showed, I also put it on, because this is enormous, right? So I have enough room, so I put some graphite on the right side of the fans, of the, on the right side of these lines, and then added, because this is a gray tile here that I was working on, put some white chalk pencil, or white, on the opposite side of that. So it really gave it a neat, just a neat, rounded, puffy look. And then this one, so this was the fun one that I decided to do a border. And what I did on this, because whenever you try to do something like this with the border, it's like, oh, when you get to the corners, what do you do? What do you do? So I decided to put a V, essentially, in each corner, and then I would work to those corners. And so the corners are a little bit, weird, because the way I had them angled, I probably made it, if I had made them a little deeper, I don't know. But at the same time, that's kind of the fun challenge of Zentangle, is you do something and not worrying about it. But then when you come to, like, okay, well, let's just figure out how we're going to get to there. And oddly, it ended up that I could, all the over and unders lined up, and, and it's, kind of an S shape, because this is really kind of like a ribbon, and it doesn't have to be an S shape. It's just curvy. And just, a really, really fun tangle, and it's just an extra challenge. So, so there's lots of options there with this one, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll give it a go. And if you have comments, would love to feel free to leave comments. I do my best to try to answer them. Even if it's just, hey, I like this, that's great too. And I'll give you a smiley face or something back, of course. But if you like the video, thumbs up are greatly appreciated. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet and like this enough to maybe see some more, feel free to subscribe. Right now I'm posting every day a Zentangle Quickie. We have a daily challenge going, just a daily tangle on our Facebook group. And it's also on my website, tangleaddicts.com. Just look for the link for daily tangle. And so that's what this is a part of. So know that if you subscribe, there'll be a Zentangle Quickie every day, and until we run out of tangles, which who knows when that will be. But anyway, so we're just having fun exploring these wonderful tangles that have been created for the community, and it's just so much fun. So with that, thanks so much for watching, and I wish you happy tangling.